Yo, what is going on, guys? We're back today for another video in our ranking series. Now, before we get into the rankings, I have to give the standard disclaimer that this is 1,000,000% my sole humble opinion. Legacy's opinion, based off of almost 8 years playing this game, pretty hardcore and pretty endgame. Now, that's not to say that all my opinions and everything I say is 100% correct or factual, because it's not. It's just my opinion based off of all of my experience and time playing this game, and it's totally cool to disagree. This game would be boring if we all agreed on everything, but all I ask is that we keep it respectful. Thank you. Let's get to the rankings. Yo, alright guys, it's time to jump into the Mutant class for our rankings. So let's go ahead and start with the 6 stars. Now, bended the rules a little bit for the next 3. For this one, there's 4 6 stars. For the tech one, there's 2 6 stars. For the cosmic, there's 4 6 stars. And then for the mystic, there's back to 3. But, yeah, some classes required a little bit of tweaking because... Let's start with 6 stars. Who basically ended up just barely making the cut is Apocalypse. Coming in at the 4th spot. So we're going to be kind of doing 4 and 4 today. 4 6 stars, 4 7 stars for a top 8. And, APOC, man, I can't forget this guy. Originally, I didn't have him on the list, but added it back after and put him in because Apocalypse, although he's not the best right now, if he was released as a 7 star, he'd be great. And he'd be very useful again. And he'd be in decks, I think, as a defender maybe too, in some metas, for sure. Especially in the next one, because of the blocking hits with give regen. APOC has some tricky to deck specials. You usually end up taking some block damage at least. So I can definitely see him being a big, beefy defender in a meta like that, for example, if he existed as a 7 star with the block penetration and everything. I think that's all Apocalypse needs to be relevant again, is to come out as a 7 star. However, I would like him to get buffed a little bit as a 7 star. Or what I would really love is if we got an Apocalypse relic that you could apply to any mutants, and the mutants that he gives these synergies to, you could maybe get some of it in like a relic form or something. That's what I'd really love to see. I'd love for just APOC to make a big comeback somehow, some way in the game, because Apocalypse is supposed to be like one of the biggest mutant threats. He is that guy, you know. He's supposed to be big, bad, scary dude. But in MCOC, he's just not right now. But when he came out, he was great. And, you know, one of the things about Apocalypse as well, like for him to get, if he were to get buffed, really all I would want is a new signature ability. I think the rest of his kit is fantastic. Just scrap this awakened ability and come up with something new, because this is horrible. Basically, all it does is when he doesn't do fights on a team and you get wins, then when you go in after, he'll get regen if you won those fights. Like, it's so stupid. I hate this way. It's one of my least favorite awakened abilities in the whole game. And of course in Battlegrounds, it's completely useless. It's literally useless whether Apocalypse is duped or unduped. That shouldn't be the case. It should matter. You know, I remember Brian saying, like, from a Kabam developer perspective, not every Kabam developer, but on average, you want to lock about 30% of a champion's power level in their awaken ability. There's 0% here. 0% here. Would love just like 10%, a little bit more power. Just get in the SIG. I think I would love that for Apocalypse. But yeah, when he first came out, he made a pretty big splash in the contest. When he very first came out, people were very skeptical and thinking he was going to be bad. But then he came out and everyone realized he's pretty great. You know, he can gain immunity to bleed and incinerate just from them being on him long enough. Then he becomes fully immune for entirety of quests. And he's really, you know, this ramp up champion that you want to be building up and bringing into an area like Grandmaster's Gauntlet. That's where he really excels. So many fights in there he can do, because every time you evade APOC, you know, he builds 1 charge up to 10 to completely counter evade. You really want to be bringing him into areas like the opposite of Battlegrounds, where you can do lots of fights. And, you know, the game just really isn't focused on that. Even with Crucible now, you know, so you do 1 fight and you swap out. So you can't even utilize his Horseman pre-fight in that type of content. So, yeah, APOC, man, he's great, but the game isn't doing him any favors. The game isn't doing him any favors, and that's why he's really not relevant right now. That's what I would say. That's my hypothesis on all that. But that is Apocalypse, our 4th 6-star mutant. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to the next 6-star mutant, and that is Red Magneto. One of the greatest buffs we've ever seen in this game. A champion that they really truly did justice to after he was such a stinker for so long. And it was incredible to see, man. So incredible. I still remember I was on my annual family camping trip, which I'm on right now if you're watching this when it was posted today or within a couple days. I remember I was camping when Magneto got buffed. And seeing the buff, he was just insane. And the fact that they buffed the red one and the white one together, it was awesome. Both Magnetos are definitely great, but the red one is definitely better as a champion. But, you know, the white one brings a lot to the table with his guidance. So he's cool and good in his own way. That's what I really love. I think they just knocked it out of the park with the Magneto buffs, especially this red one. Against metal champions, he's just so good. So good. The perfect block, the infinite prowess building, the bleed damage, the magnet bleeds, and against bleed immunes, the armor break damage. Like, if there's a metal champion, Magneto will crush them. And that's what he should be doing. You know, the only lame thing about Magneto, it's nothing to do with him, it's to do with the metal tag. And I think this is so dumb. But let me tell you the Kabam logic on magnetic tags real quick. So, Kabam, the way they see it is, for example, Nightcrawler here, right? He's carrying a sword. I don't think that sword's made out of plastic. I think it's probably made out of a metallic alloy, so it should be magnetizable, correct? Let's see, does Nightcrawler have the magnetic tag? Look at that. He doesn't have the metal tag. Why is that? Kabam logic says that if a champion can drop their metal, they shouldn't be magnetized. What? If that's the case, then any non-metal champion that fights Magneto should drop their weapons against him. That's my logic, but no, that's not Kabam logic. So that's how the metal tag works, which is kind of silly. If it worked the way it should by the laws of physics and, you know, what is actually metal and magnetizable, then, you know, a larger percentage of the game would be metal and Magneto would be that much better. But that's definitely holding him back a bit, and just being a 6-star is also holding him back. But hey man, if you got to deal with metal, this guy is your best bet. And places like the Crucible are definitely doing Magneto justice. Bring him in for a metal fight and he's just gonna handle it, you know. Yeah, Magneto is fantastic. And now that we've seen White Magneto as a 7-star, I hope that we eventually see Red Magneto come back as a 7-star. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, definitely highly rate Magneto. And yeah, that is our third 6-star on this list. Now, above Magneto is Mr. Sinister, in my opinion. Mr. Sinister just got buffed this year, and the moment he was buffed, he instantly became extremely relevant all across the game. And I can give you two prime examples here. So I can give you the top end example of Mr. Sinister becoming one of, if not the best bullseye counters in the game. I would say he is the hardest bullseye counter. He's just not the fastest bullseye counter, which in Battlegrounds sometimes you want the speed, but he is so safe. Like, you can just play it horribly and still come out with like 90+% health, because the way Mr. Sinister works is, you know, he heals all critical hits. Bullseye does all guaranteed critical hits, so it's just a match made in heaven for Sinister. He's so perfect for that fight, which is awesome, because I would say Bullseye is one of the top 5 toughest defenders in the game right now. So the fact that an older champion became like a hard counter after the buff is insane. Like, I mean, before the buff, Sinister would have been an alright counter because of his regen. That never changed with the buff, but he just had no damage before. But now after his buff, he has incredible damage. So that's on the top end perspective. End game, Sinister, boom, top tier champion right away after his buff. On the complete flip side of things, on my free-to-play account, like Spiker, I was going through Act 6 and Act 7 and all that type of content, and I had just a rank 3 6-star Mr. Sinister. And holy crap, this guy put in so much work in questing on that account. You You know, anytime first of all, just his bleed immunity came in handy, but on any type of nodes that would scale his damage, so anywhere that he can gain fury passives, or anywhere that increases special attack damage, like power shield, for example, that really greatly increases Sinister's damage. Basically, the way Mr. Sinister works now is, you use your heavy attack. If you parry, charge it, you can pause the debuffs on the opponent. Once you charge the heavy for long enough, you build up some stuff, and then you start gaining bleeds. And then when you throw your special one, you transfer all debuffs, and it doesn't matter what they are. When they're transferred, they turn into degen. Degen is an incredible damage source, so that's really powerful. And then again, you can pause those debuffs when you're charging your heavy. It is just incredible, and all that degen damage just scales with the more attack rating that Mr. Sinister gets, I'm pretty sure. So like, I think if you just use boost, that would also just increase that damage. And I definitely know through nodes it scales, especially like power shield, and just any nodes where you can just get like furies to increase his attack. It all scales with that damage. And like, for example, like I said, I had like a 6-star rank 3 Mr. Sinister on like a power shield path. His degen were ticking for like 14,000 each per tick. So it's like 28,000 damage per second. And this is ticking, and I'm pausing it. Like, it's unreal. Sinister is so good. The only thing that really slows him down, more so talking about on the top end of things, is the Inequity Mastery, because he has to apply, all those bleed debuffs to himself and transfer them. So if the opponent is running the Inequity Mastery, that can definitely mitigate some of Sinister's damage and slow him down. That's, again, what makes him a very safe bullseye counter, but not the fastest. But yeah, highly recommend checking out Sinister after his buff. He's so good. I even put him above, Magneto, who we all know how good Magneto is. But yeah. Then we have our number 1 best mutant 6-star, and that is the one and only Archangel. Archangel has aged so incredibly well in this game. Let me give you guys a little bit of MCOC history and trivia here. So, when Archangel came out, it was actually a triple champ month. So, it's been a very long time since we've had 3 new champion releases in 1 month. We've had a couple that don't really count. Like last year we had like Maestro, which is technically 3 champs in 1 month, but like that was through special means. Like this was an actual, there's 3 brand new champions that came out and were in arenas and in the crystals all in 1 month. So it was Archangel, Psylocke, and Iceman, a triple mutant event. And so way back when, like, Psylocke was the clear stinker. To this day, we all know Psylocke is pretty bad. She could use a sick buff. She really could. But so everyone knew Psylocke was the worst of the 3, back then. But it wasn't so cut and dry. And we're talking Iceman before his buff, okay? We're talking pre-buff Iceman here. There was debates, and people would argue that who's better, Iceman or Archangel? And back in the day, it was close. We're talking pre-buff Iceman and Archangel as he is right now. And people would debate, who's better. Now, it's so clear that even Iceman, after getting a buff, Archangel is still clearly so much better. Like, Archangel has just aged so extremely well. And it's just because he's such a simple champion. He's such a simple champion, but such a powerful champion. First of all, damage. Archangel unduped, he's got the damage. If the enemy can be bled and poisoned and they're not really shrugging your debuffs, Archangel is going to be the man for that. He's going to just do so much damage. Then you throw in the awakened ability, and boom, 1 neurotoxin equates to a heal block, which is really nice. I think that's in the awakened ability, right? Yeah. Just one sig level, and boom, your neurotoxin. I was thinking neuroshock. Your neurotoxin becomes a heal block, basically a passive heal block, which is great utility. And then, the more you sig Archangel up, for each of those neurotoxins, he's lowering the opponent's ability accuracy. So, like, the sweet spot is like 33%. I don't know exactly what sig that is. So that basically with just 3, you're pretty much turning off all abilities. And it's not that difficult to get 3 neurotoxins with, decent RNG. And so if you can do that, you have damage, you have heal block, and your opponent has no abilities. Like, it's so simple, but so effective. And that is what is kept Archangel in the forefront of the Mutant class for a very long time and still relevant to this day. The only downside about Archangel is he's RNG based. Sometimes, when the RNG strikes, you can hit the lottery and just win in Battlegrounds, get the fastest time, and other times you get terrible RNG and get screwed. That's what goes into playing Archangel. It's the luck of the odds, but he's so powerful, especially when the luck goes his way. And there is a way to increase his RNG, that is as a horseman, but again, horseman pre-fights and synergies are pretty irrelevant in MCOC of today that we're playing. But those are all of our 6-star mutant champions. Now we have 4 7-star mutants to talk about, equaling a top 8 list. So let's go ahead and move over to the 7 stars. So coming in at the number 4 spot, we have Bishop. So I really like Bishop. I really do. But I just feel like as of late, he hasn't really seemed the most relevant. Hopefully that changes, but I really like Bishop. I think he's an incredible champion. I kind of want him taken to rank 3, but like I just said, as of late, he just hasn't been the most useful. So that's really what's holding me back from taking him up. But I do like Bishop. I think he's awesome. He was another champion that got buffed. A lot of mutants on this list got buffed. Before his buffed, he was, again, a pretty big stinker, but he always had energy resistance, a good amount of it, especially for the mutant class. So he's always had that utility. And even today, that utility is really nice. Just that energy resistance. It allows him to do all kinds of stuff. And I really just, love his debuff shrug punishing against the skill champions that Purify. Makes him a really, really good option for the likes of Bullseye, Atuma. Just love Bishop for those fights. Bishop's another one where he's a little bit of luck based on first damage, and that just comes down to the special 2. You want to pair with Bishop to build up his prowess. You can also consume some for regen, which is nice. Not the biggest regen, but it's nice. But it's really all about that special 2 and whether it crits or not. If you get some crits on that special 2, it does so much damage. But if you don't get the crits, it's about average. And I don't think Bishop has the best crit rate. Let's see, yes, not even 20%. But that is why I do run the crit stat focus. But yeah, Bishop is the 4th and in last place for the 7-star mutants on this list. Let's go ahead and now talk about the next champion in the number 3 spot. And that is one that I do not have as a 7-star, and that is Omega Red. So I think Omega Red is fantastic. And I think Kabam does too. That's why they had the whole Omega Days events, where if you really spent enough money and units and everything, you could get a very high sig and the current highest level of Omega Red, and guarantee an awakening on him too. So, if you can do all that and to get Omega Red, then he definitely deserves to be on this list, and maybe even higher on the list. But that is so rare. And even still, with all that, I don't really see Omega Red that often now after that event. I know Karate Mike took him up to maxed out, and I've seen him do some great fights in Battlegrounds with him. Other than Mike, I don't really see anyone playing Omega in most Battleground metas and using him. But I still think he's very powerful. Back in Omega Red's prime days, he was one of the best champs in the game. I think another thing is that the game, definitely for me, has really moved away from the recoil mastery so much compared to the way it was back in the day, like when Ghost and Corvus and Omega Red were all in their prime and were considered the best champions in the game. Back then, those masteries felt like almost like required to be running them. Nowadays, I never even use the recoil masteries, pretty much ever. So yeah, I feel like that has affected Omega Red a little bit. It's definitely from my perspective. But like I said, this is all my opinion, and I'm sure if you're someone who uses those masteries pretty much every day, you'd probably put Omega Red higher on the list, and that is completely fair. But that's Omega Red. Let's go ahead now and talk about 2 final mutants. Number 2, we have Domino, one of my highest SIG level 7-star. She's sitting at 107 currently. And Domino, man, she is another champion similar, comparable to Archangel, in the fact that these champions have truly stood the test of time in the contest and still remain more relevant and viable today than when they were initially released. That's really, really impressive to do in this game. You have to have some really special abilities for that to happen. And Archangel and Domino both have some very special abilities. Archangel, having Neurotoxin, no other champion in the game having access to that effect, and Domino being just one of the most BS defenders in the game with her critical failure damage, her ability to turn off the dexterity mastery, and just ruin your day completely. That's what Domino has the potential to do on defense. That's what she's always had the potential to do on defense, and it still happens. And people will say, yeah, but there's so many Domino counters. Sure, but the metas won't always allow for that. A very good example of this was in the last Battlegrounds meta with all the armor and everything. Domino was one of the nastiest defenders. Just one of the nastiest. And a lot of the regular Domino counters just didn't work. Red Skull just didn't work. Wasn't a good option for it last season because of all the armor breaks. A lot of the tech champions, have armor like Nimrod. Not a viable option for it. So this made Domino just extra insane, and that's just how easily that can happen. And you're not always going to have a Domino counter, and when you don't, it's Jover. It's Jover. Like, what are you going to do? You didn't draft a Domino counter because your opponent didn't have a Domino, and they pick last, and they pick up a rank 3 Sig 200 Domino. You're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And not to mention, Domino on attack. She went, again, it's luck. Similar to Archangel, even more though. When you get good luck, you can get insane luck and do fights that shouldn't be possible with Domino. If you get all crits on your special 2 and apply like multiple crit bleeds, like you're going to run through just about any health pool very fast. But that requires insane luck. You can also get terrible luck, not get a single crit, and not apply a single bleed. It's a gamble using Domino. But that's the great thing about having her at a high level and a high rank. When you draft her in Battlegrounds, if your opponent does draft a hardcore Domino counter, it's fine. You can still make her work on attack. So, yeah, Domino really aged well, really worth your resources, your rank up gems, your signature stones. She's probably going to be one of my first ever Sig 200 champions. That's Domino. And then last but not least, he's the number 1 best mutant 7-star champion in the game. And that's Onslaught. That is Onslaught. Pretty sure everyone saw this coming. But yes, Onslaught, I think, is the best mutant 7-star in the game by a landslide. I don't think anyone comes even close to him. Like, really not close at all. There's no one. There's no one in the mutant class that comes close. He's just so good. Someone asked me on stream the other day who I think is the most rank 3 champ in the game. Some people in chat were saying Photon. I think it's Onslaught. I think Onslaught is the most rank 3 champion in game. Maybe I'll have to ask Kabam, see if they can answer that question for me. Maybe Kabam Crash could. But if I had to guess, I would say Onslaught. Because when I play Battlegrounds, like 9 out of 10 matches, my opponent has a rank 3 Onslaught. Which, I do too, so it's fine. So it's nice because Onslaught never gets banned. But, like, seriously, not 8 to 9 out of 10 times my opponent has rank 3 Onslaught. Like, I see him all the time. Undupe, dupe, doesn't even matter. Like, he's just so powerful. Onslaught, on defense, we all know how much of a menace he can be. But I think Onslaught is very fair and balanced, especially on defense for the most part. It can be a little bit silly sometimes when you just get bad Neuroshock RNG and you just start melting because of that. Don't like that. But other than that, I think Onslaught is a pretty balanced defender. His special one, actually the only other gripe I have with him is that his specials are really long, which is only a partial gripe because I like how long his specials are when I'm using him. But when I'm fighting him, it certainly can be a little bit annoying. The animation takes forever. But his special 1 is completely dexable, so is his special 2. And I think, the SOS boss really gave us all a lot of practice, especially on special 1. But it's totally available. I think Onslaught's a very powerful, very punishing defender, but also balanced. I don't think he's broken or overpowered in any way on defense. Or too much, again, outside of the Neuroshock a little bit if you get bad RNG, because you can only purify 1 at a time if you're not metal, and if you are metal, you can't purify them. They're just going to do their damage. But if you're not metal, you can dash back and purify them, and then there's a little bit of a cooldown before you can purify more. So you definitely don't want to be using metal champs against him, which does make sense because Onslaught is the manifestation of Magneto and Professor X's powers. So yeah, I think that definitely does make sense from like a comic book standpoint and everything. So yeah, and then that's just Onslaught on defense. On offense, he is one of the most versatile champions in game. He has just so much utility, non-contact attacks. He has, if his debuffs are shrugged off, he replaces them with passive versions. Just so insane. He has some of, if not the best type of damage in the entire game, which is Neuroshock, that no one is immune to yet. That don't have a stack limit. You can just keep stacking those up. And then Degen. You can convert the Neuroshock into Degen, which again, no one's immune to Neuroshock, and I don't think anyone else in the game is immune to passive Degen. There's some champions that can like reduce the damage, but I think it will apply to every single playable champion in game. And yeah, that's fat Degen. Degen's direct damage. Like, it's not energy, it's not physical, it's direct damage. So it does so much. And then that paired with his Daunted, and the long-winded special attacks. How Daunted works is the opponent takes more damage during special attacks. So when you have that Degen active and you just throw a special, the Degen starts ticking for more based on how many Daunted you have. And again, like we already talked about, his specials are so long-winded that Daunted just ticks so much when you use that special one and you have 20 Degens. The damage is just unreal. It's enough damage to be doing Necropolis level fights. I have Onslaught showcase on the channel if you guys want to check it out. We did some Necropolis fights, we did some Spring of Sorrow fights, we did some Battlegrounds fights. Just Onslaught is useful everywhere in the game, every single place in the game. AQ, Alliance War, Prestige, Battlegrounds, Defense, Offense, Crucible, Necropolis. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter where. Onslaught will be useful any and everywhere. He is just so good. Yeah, that's enough glazing Onslaught. Let's go ahead and pull up the top 8 list here. So Apocalypse in that number 8 spot, the old mutant goat. Then we have Bishop in the number 7 spot, Omega Red in the number 6 spot, Magneto 6-star in the number 5 spot, Mr. Sinister in that number 4 spot, Archangel in that number 3 spot, Domino in that number 2 spot, and Onslaught, of course, in that number 1 spot. Yeah, that is my rankings for the mutant class. Onslaught, just so good. There's definitely some other great mutants that we didn't mention. If I had another 7-star in here, it probably would be like Sunspots or Nightcrawler. Yeah, those are 2 honorable mentions. Havoc and Dust aren't that bad either. There's a lot of really good mutants, but can only have 8 on here. So those are the 8 that I picked. And yeah, Onslaught without a doubt, number 1, not even close. It's like Onslaught and then like so much space and then Domino and then Archangel and everyone else. But it's just Onslaught standing up on a mountaintop all by himself when it comes to mutant class, in my opinion. Alright guys, that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for the mutant top 8 list for 6-stars and 7-star champions. I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if so, subscribe if you want to see more content. Tech will be the next one, and that one is going to be a little bit longer than 8, but only 2 6-stars are going to be mentioned on that one. So stay tuned for the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out. Have a great day.